Okay guys, got a new video to end the year with for you. Today's video is going to be on CSoft console operation and troubleshooting and some enhancements that you can do to make it better. To start off with, I just want to explain the simple setup I have here. This laptop here would represent any typical console, CSoft console position. You could have this one or more, and all of the computers are going to be connected through a LAN over to a series of radios that are also going to have the Ethernet adapters connected to them so that they can communicate back and forth through the voice over internet protocol or radio over internet protocol that Telex has developed, and it's a really nice system. I like it a lot. The only problem is that if you have a limited setup, it's really hard to get in to work on, because it's not an easy thing to get into, because it's tightly controlled in the sense that every console position, even if you have the software and you're running it, you have to have it licensed or it won't work. So if you don't have a license for it, it doesn't do any good to have the software in it. I'm one example of where in my own work now, I'm responsible for a CSoft system, and they only have one position and we have no backup. So I had to come up with improvise a way in order to be able to at least half split and look at the system if there is a problem. And what I came up with is a really neat feature that Telex has made, in that you can take one of their interface devices, in this case IP-223, and you can connect it to an old school tone remote and essentially make a poor man's CSoft console. It has very limited functions, but if you're already a very limited function screen under CSoft, that's not a problem. And on mine, that's exactly what I have. It's a very simple, almost a single channel, multi-frequency, common carrier, VHF, multi-tone repeater system that most fire organizations use. But when it comes to my setup, what I needed was a way to see whether the radio was functioning or the console was functioning, and split between the two, and also to have a backup console in case the main one went down, so you'd have something to go back to. So these devices, and the IP-223 has been replaced by an IP-224, which goes for more than $2,000, almost $3,000, whereas you can get these IP-223s on eBay for $100 a piece. And I just happened to get lucky, and I was looking, and someone advertised a new tone remote, new in the box, for $125, and I had nothing to lose, so I went ahead and I got it. And sure enough, it was brand new out of the box. There was a jumper inside that was missing that caused the speaker not to work, but I had that figured out pretty quick. And it's a brand new multi-channel tone remote, and I got it married to this IP-223 here, and it's essentially does the same job as the CSoft console does for this one particular channel that we're on. And I want to give you a demo and show you how that works. Normally this, like I said, there would be a LAN connection that went over and connected over to the radio, and with the structure of the of how it works, your network can be any shape that you can imagine. And as long as you're on the LAN, you're good. And even if you have, in this particular case, it's a wired connection between the two, but you can get a point-to-point wireless extension, Ethernet extension, as long as it's a layer 2, and that'll work as well. You can't use normal routers, Wi-Fi routers, because of the nature of the multicast traffic. It'll let the multicast traffic come in, but it won't broadcast it back out on Wi-Fi. Unless you have a really fancy router that you can program to pass multicast traffic, but most of them by default will not pass it. And this could also be any type of remote Ethernet connection. So you could have a microwave hop with T1s, and you're using a T1 to Ethernet adapter to go across the hop. Telephone T1 Ethernet adapters. Once again, anything that will extend your Ethernet connection on a layer 2 basis, you can hook this up anywhere you want to. Now, I'm going to give you a little demo of some of the things that you can do in the troubleshooting realm, and one of those is using a program called WireShark, and it's basically just a program that listens in on your Ethernet connection, and whether it be wireless or hardwired, and just shows you all the traffic that's going back and forth. Now, I'm currently hooked up with this laptop to this little switch here, and the two IP-223s are also hooked up here. And I'm going to show you how. I'm going to use a handy talkie here, and we're going to come from the handy talkie into the radio. We'll go into the first IP-223 here. That analog audio will get digitized and packetized, sent along the network over here to the IP-223 over here, where it will get turned back into analog audio and go into our tone remote as just a normal audio amplifier, if you will. And when I'm keying up, you'll see the broadcast traffic come across on the WireShark, and you'll see all the UDP packets and everything. But here's a demo just showing you how it works. Testing 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, and you can see the biggest splash of blue there where it was giving you all the things, and you can see the IP addresses of each of these as they're going back and forth. And the reason it's going back and forth is because I also have a logging program on on channel 1 here, so whenever there's traffic on that channel, it also sends out a log for logging recording, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But anyway, and it works both ways. So when I go to push to talk here, the tone remote does the tone sequence with the high level guard tone, function tone, low level guard tone. Over here to IP-223, it translates that keying sequence and then starts sending out data packets with the your audio encapsulated into it. Once again, back through the network over to the this telex. It's keys a relay in the telex, which keys the push to talk on the Kenwood, and then the transmit audio comes out of the telex into the Kenwood, out of the Kenwood into the HT. So testing 1 2 3 4, and it's a same process with these UDP packets that are now going back and forth. And if you were looking at the console or at the radio and you had your WireShark here, you'd be able to quickly half split at least and say, hey, I know that the problem is at the console because I don't see any packets coming from the console Plus, I can use my own mini console, and I can control the radio. Or you'll find it completely the opposite. You'll find that when dispatch talks, comes out of your remote just fine, because not only do you get to listen to both sides of the conversation, it also shows you which frequency they're transmitting on, which is very handy. But you can quickly eliminate whether it's the console or the radio, depending on which one responds. So it's a fantastic half split tool, as long as you're somewhere there along the LAN in between dispatch and your radio vault, wherever that is. Now, that's kind of a look at how you can troubleshoot, and once again, you can add these types of miniature consoles all over the place if you wanted. There's no limit. They simply respond on multicast transmit, so you're not going to have a problem with too many on the system, so to speak. As long as you're on the LAN, you can have these operational. The only thing that you have to have is you do need a dedicated IP address that's assignable to these. So you have to have permission from your network folks, in other words, to make sure that, and you can have these set for a DHCP, so it gets its IP address from the server, or you can hard program an IP address. It doesn't matter. The multicast packets still go out the same no matter what address it's got. Now, one of the other cool features, like I was going to get into now, talk about how each one of these comes with essentially 2-in-1. So there's 2 radios, 2 outputs, 2 separate programming. It's really just 2 complete units in one, because there's nothing that's common to both of them. So one can be set up in console mode, the other one can be set up in local mode. This one is set up channel 1 for console mode, and this one's set up for channel 1 for local mode. I have this one set up on channel 2 for local mode, and what I'm doing is I'm taking the audio out of channel 2, and I'm running it into my laptop here through a little USB external sound card, and I have a little instant recall recorder program. So it comes in real handy if you really were going to do a remote dispatch. This is that one feature that they really like to have, that they miss the most if they have to go to a backup. So if you could get this on a PC and get it by them close to where you can get the audio, you can give it to them. I'll give you a demonstration of that. So testing instant recall recorder 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 instant recall, and come back over here and we'll play it.
Instant recall recorder 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 instant recall.
And there you go. And it's really cool to have that feature for them, like I said, and makes handy for you also if you're trying to listen to some intermittent audio, or if they're complaining about their audio's cutting in, you can make your own independent recording of it to go back and listen to later. But yeah, it's a really cool system, and you can get into it really super cheap. So I spent a grand total of for my backup console here $250 after tax, and that's pennies on the dollar compared to if you actually bought a real license and a real PC setup with the full ADHB4 adapter box and the whole shebang. That's a lot of money, and I really, like I said, I really like the product. I encourage anyone who works for an agency that has the money to buy as much of that as they can new to keep these guys in business and putting out the good stuff they're doing. But if you're on a shoestring budget and you're doing everything you can, this is one of the best ways to kind of get in the door and still participate and do some other things, because you can really add on a lot of functionality by having these set up in particular places. For instance, your boss's office. It'd be a great place to have one of these at, or any other place where you used to have the legacy remote and you no longer do. So anyway, I hope that helps and gives you a good example of how the systems work, going back and forth. I'll probably do another video here sometime soon about the inner workings and programming and setup of the IP-223s. They are a world unto their own. There's a lot. It's not an easy subject because there's a lot of things to consider, and you do have to have your basic internet, Ethernet knowledge to even go into them at all. If you don't, I definitely recommend you read up on that and get all that stuff down before you try and go into the world. But hope that helps, and hope you have a great new year in 2022.